Morning, everyone, and welcome to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Happy Father's Day for those who are celebrating this morning. It is, as always, good to be with you and see your smiling faces in those little squares on my screen. Hoping that you all are staying safe and that you are enjoying at least some form of connection, including this one. So again, it's good to have you here with us this morning. A couple of announcements as we get started. First, as always, we will do breakout room discussions after the service. So we're going to give a couple minutes for folks to log off if they would like. Then we'll send people into breakout rooms. And I want to ask you to ponder a couple of questions and reflect on a couple of questions in those breakout rooms. The first is, how is it with your spirit? How you doing? How you holding up? And then what values guide you in deciding what's ethical and what isn't? And that's what we'll be talking about in the sermon this morning a little bit as well. The second announcement is that we have our last week this week with our administrator, Sue Ringler. And I just want to say how grateful I am to have had almost 5 years to work with Sue. She's been a real blessing to our congregation. She has done a lot to improve the culture in the office and has given folks a friendly welcome, done a great job with social justice. And I am so grateful for Sue Ringler. If you would like, you can email or mail a card to Sue. I know she'd appreciate hearing from you as she gets ready for her new adventure with Tempe Community Action Agency, where I know she's going to be a real gift to the city of Tempe. Well, we're going to get started now with words from Allison Wohler. She writes, "With thankful hearts, we've come together this morning to celebrate the bounty of the day, to bask in the warmth of this community, to share with friends the tides of our lives, to entertain perennially our hopes for a better future. We join together this morning, as always, to resist injustice and inequality, wherever they may be found. Our hearts are touched by the human need we now feel around us, whether far away or within the reach of our hand. We come here to be together because this is how we believe our lives are best lived, in questioning and conversation, in compassion and service, in gratitude and joy, in companionship and love. It is good to be together this morning." Well, if you have a chalice or a candle that you're going to light for our time together, I invite you to do that now as we read together our chalice lighting words. "We kindle this flame, symbol of our faith, for the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of love which calls us to work for justice." And do we have Roz? Roz, are you here?
Okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't unmute myself. Give me.
That's all right.
Good morning, BUU. I'm Roz Hawkins and honored to be your worship associate today, meeting in our new virtual space. While I too miss our time in person, I'm always excited to scroll through the gallery and Zoom and see your beautiful faces. The expression, "this too will pass," is my daily mantra to remind me that we will be together again. But there may indeed be a new normal. It is our mission to try to ensure that every individual that graces our space feels a sense of community, regardless of who you are or what brought you here. While we don't have all the answers, we welcome the questions. We welcome your curiosity, embrace your diversity, and open our hearts to you as individuals, as part of a human collective celebrating our commonalities. Members, friends, or just those dropping in, Welcome to our service today. I would be completely remiss if I did not acknowledge today's significance as Father's Day. To all fathers or those who have stepped into the role of father with us today, a special shout out to you. The role you play in your family is significant. Parenting is the most vital hat we wear. To bring special attention to its importance is a good thing, but I do believe we need to be careful in our expectations of this recognition. A brief history lesson may be in order here. Father's Day came about as a response to the celebration of Mother's Day. And Mother's Day became a commercial holiday in 1908. And then in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson approved a resolution that made the second Sunday in May a holiday in honor of, quote, that tender, gentle army of mothers of America, unquote. Father's Day, on the other hand, took a little bit more effort. In 1909, a Spokane, Washington woman named Sonora Smart Dodd, one of 6 children raised by a widower, tried to establish an official equivalent to Mother's Day for male parents. She went to local churches, the YMCA, shopkeepers, and government officials to drum up support for her idea. And she was successful. Washington State celebrates the nation's first statewide Father's Day on June 19, 1910. However, the campaign to celebrate the nation's fathers did not meet the same enthusiasm, perhaps because, as one florist explained, fathers haven't the same sentimental appeal that mothers have. In 1924, President Calvin Coolidge urged state governments to observe Father's Day, which morphed into the Father's Day we celebrate the 3rd Sunday of June. Now, one historian wrote that many men scoffed at the holiday's sentimental attempts to domesticate manliness with flowers and gift giving, or they derided the proliferation of such holidays as a commercial gimmick to sell more products, often paid for by the father himself. Well, Mother's Day started as kind of a commercial venture as well. But both holidays, both Mother and Father's Day, started as ways for parents to be honored, yet they grew predominantly from retailer support, which they saw as an opportunity for increased sales. While this is not inherently bad, we may want to consider the commercialization of all holidays. How do we best celebrate, honor our parents, our fallen, our traditions? Is it by the money we spend or the time we invest? Perhaps now is a good time to evaluate our priorities and our investment in the things that are truly important. I was blessed to have 2 wonderful parents. My mother's gone now. My father is still alive, and at the stark age of 88, he continues to be an integral part of my life. I wished him a happy Father's Day today. My father also never knew his father and promised himself at a young age that he would never deny his own children. My first husband and the father of my 3 children zoned out of our lives after our divorce when our children were 6, 5, and 1. As a result, his role in their young lives and now their adult lives is extremely limited. My husband, John, however, is the most caring and nurturing man I know, and he is a blessing for both me and my children. All fathers are not created equal. We'll probably know some great dads and some deadbeat dads. We need to lift them all up that they may know the importance of the institution of fatherhood. Let's not get wrapped up in the commercial aspect of this recognition, but commit ourselves to all be better parents, realizing that we are responsible for the next generation. May our celebration be one of connection. Once again, happy Father's Day and welcome to our Zoom service. Now we will have a video presentation of the car parade from last weekend while we listen to the hymn, We Are an Angry, Gentle, or We Are a Gentle, Angry People. Thank you.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Good morning. I am Marcy Bodwin. I'm your Director of Faith Formation. I want to welcome you here on this Father's Day, and thank you to all of the people who have stepped into the role of father for all of our children and young people. So today I want to share with you a fun little story about Father's Day and what it would have been like if Darth Vader had participated in his children's lives. So there's several scenarios in here that echo real life you may or may not have experienced. And so I've chosen a few of them to share with you. But of course, the book starts as any good Star Wars story starts. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, episode 3.5, Darth Vader and Son. Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, leads the Galactic Empire against the heroic Rebel Alliance. Before he can take care of the rebels, Lord Vader must first take care of his son, 4-year-old Luke Skywalker. So the first scenario, of course, Luke has to learn how to play baseball, but he's using a lightsaber. And then Darth takes his son to a bar, but he has to say to him, "Don't blow bubbles." Darth is trying to relax and read his summer novel, and all Luke wants to do is point out everything he sees. "Look, Dad, droids." And how many of you have heard this? "I don't want a sister." And did you try putting the cookies up high where the kids can't reach it? Doesn't work because the force is strong in this one. And then this says, but Dad, you told me I could go to Tachi Station after nap. I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any farther. I love this one. Recognize this scene? Luke, what are you doing? Get out of there. Lord Vader says to his generals, perhaps one of you would like to babysit my son. And then, of course, the inevitable classroom play, and Lord Vader saying, that's my son. Then there's getting ready for school. Luke, why aren't you ready for school? I'm here to put you back on schedule. Perhaps I can find new ways to motivate you. And Lord Vader has to teach his son how to play checkers. You've learned much, young one. Thanks, Dad. I love this. They're in a toy store. This isn't the toy you're looking for. Yes, it is. And then, of course, we've got our boo-boos. Can you just see the Dark Lord there putting a bandage on? And Luke, of course, has made a mess in the room. So he says, Luke, pick up your toys right this instant. Luke, I am your father. Do you want a timeout? Darth Vader says, together we can rule the galaxy as father and son. And all Luke can say is, and then can I have a treat? Are we there yet? Not yet. So, of course, Dad is having to do a drawing for young Luke. Is that a good guy or a bad guy? Good guy? Luke says he looks like a bad guy. Well, he's a good guy, says Darth Vader. Draw more good guys, says Luke. This is just great. No, you cannot play with Han Solo, and that's final. Yoda's pretty great, right, Dad? Sure. He's really powerful with the Force. Yeah, I guess. Even stronger in the Force than you, right? I don't know. Do you need to go potty, Luke? No. Well, you kind of look like you're doing a little dance. I don't have to go. And of course, he looks just like you, Lord Vader. And then, have you had to have an important conversation and the children are around? What is thy bidding, my master? Dad, 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 Dad. Luke, go in the other room. Dad, Dad, would you like to talk later, Lord Vader? No, master. Dad, Dad, poke, poke. 'Cause I can. You don't have to be scared. See, it's just a Wookiee. Thanks, son. I can't wear this, he thinks. Oh, and an important dinner. Luke, come back. That isn't safe. I find your lack of patience disturbing. Please, can we go home, Dad? Can we go now? This, I don't know. Is this gender stereotyping, or is it just difficult for the Vader to wrap a present? So he says, oh, this is how much? So expensive, and he's wrapping a present for Luke. Happy birthday. Dad says I'm not supposed to talk to strangers. Would Vader be the good parent that when his child dropped his ice cream, he gave him his own? How many times have children brought home pets we may not be interested in? Can we keep him? So I hope you enjoyed these scenarios. Brings back some memories for me, but my arm is totally asleep. Happy Father's Day to all of you who represent a parent in our children's life.
Well, thank you, Marcy. And that is one of the more interesting Star Wars rewrites that this Star Wars lover has ever seen. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. Well, this is the point in the service when, if we were in person, we would pass the offering plates. So let me just say that there are still ways to give, and thank you so much to all of you for keeping up your pledged giving to the congregation. You can text your donation as you see there, or you can mail a check to Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Again, thank you for all of you who have kept up your giving. If you're not able, know that we understand. We would just love to hear from you, and particularly to hear how we can help. But either way, thank you for your generosity in all of its many forms. And before we move into a time of meditation, a time of prayer, I want to say happy birthday to Mr. Blonde, Simon, right? Who turned 7 years old yesterday. So Simon, very happy birthday if you're on the service this morning, and hope you have a wonderful weekend to celebrate. Well, now let's move into a time of centering, a time of prayer. We'll begin by singing together Lone Wild Bird.
Good morning. My name is Lisa Benign. I'm a member of this congregation, Wiccan High Priestess of the American Tradition of the Goddess, and registered clergy with Covenant of the Goddess. I'm delighted to be with you this morning. Author and storyteller Brene Brown describes spirituality in a way I think is relevant, specifically in this time of our history. Spirituality, she says, is recognizing and celebrating that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than all of us, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion. Practicing spirituality begins and brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our lives. This weekend is the summer solstice. It's also known as Litha. It marks the longest day of the year when the sun's power is at its peak. It's a time to mark peak moments of warmth, growth, sometimes painful growth. Our ancestors built huge bonfires on this day to celebrate their very tangible connection to that vital power of the immense burning star that keeps our planet bright, warm, and alive. It's a good time to remember that we, just like the sun, contain the power to nurture and sustain, and we have a responsibility to burn as brightly as we can. Summer is a celebration of our inner fire power, the power that we see as we watch abundance and nourishment grow from tiny little seeds. That power also brings things to fulfillment, expands, it brightens our lives, and it helps bring to the surface the things that have come from our own ideas, our plans. And some of those ideas may be decades in the making, as we're seeing now. The power of the sun, when we let it in, can bring all of those things to fruition. In the book, Celebrating the Great Mother, Litha is described as a time to invite fire into our lives, to burn away everything we've outgrown, both as individuals and as a community. All things that no longer serve us. Fire is what makes the wild things grow inside us and the things our inner self longs for, love and justice. We don't have to do this alone. We, as Unitarian Universalists, believe we are all connected, the people, the planet, the sun. And if we align ourselves with the power in others, with the power in the natural forces around us, what we are unable to do ourselves can be made to happen. We just need to attune to our inner selves and those that we are connected to. So at this time, I would invite you to seek out and use the light of the sun, its fire, its energy, its healing power, and engage fully, courageously, and with an open heart. I invite you to a short journey as we can connect ourselves to our communities, to align us, and together to burn away what no longer serves us. Let's use the fire inside us to make changes in ourselves, our society, and our planet together. So please close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so, and take a few deep breaths, gently relax. Feel where your body is connected to the earth. From that place of connection, envision big, strong roots, like the roots of a redwood tree. Reach your roots down, down into the depths of the earth. These roots ground you. They give you stability. They give you safety. Take a moment and feel your solid connection. Now envision a light gathering in the area of your chest. This light symbolizes spiritual energy. Breathe deeply and gently, and let this light spread throughout your body until it surrounds you. This is the light that connects you to the energy of the sun, the earth, the Creator. Notice what color the light is. It can be any color. It's often imagined as white, like bright sunlight. But it could be any color, any intensity that works for you. See that light in your mind's eye. The light is all around us. You are bathed in brightness, in energy, and in warmth. Now, from the place in your body where that light shines the brightest, send that light out from your body to the people in your family. Send it to all the people you normally interact with on a daily basis. people you know are hurting. Your UU brothers and sisters. Envision that light connecting to each and every one of them. You stay connected and rooted to the earth. Do not take on others' emotions or energy. You simply share your light, connecting from a place of love. Continue reaching your light out to our leaders, to people who may challenge you. And finally, envision sharing your light with everyone who may be hurting, who needs love, to all of humanity. Envision our lights all meeting as we are all connected by this great light, connected to the earth, to the sun, to the divine in each of us. Sense that energy and connectedness. Now take from this light the energy you need, knowing there's plenty for all. For the source of this light is endless and ever abundant. Take a moment, experience the abundance, then envision what you will do with this light, with this love, when you leave this place. As you give energy, so do you receive it. And thus the circle of life will continue. Take one moment, bask in this light, and come back to this time and place. Give thanks for the light and the love of our community. Lord and Lady, let me be your instrument. Let my hands be your hands, lifted in compassion. May the web of life be woven strand by strand with grace. Where there is hatred, may we sow love. Where there is intolerance, understanding. Where there is violence, peace. And when there is sorrow, joy. Father and Mother of all things, may our eyes be open, may our hearts be open. May we see the truth of our own holiness, and may we feel the holiness in each other. So mote it be.
Thank you, Lisa. Now in this time, the space of connectedness, let's take a moment and honor the fathers in our lives and those that represent fatherhood by enjoying this next song, this story about a father's love.
Got sent home from school one day with a shiner on my eye. And fighting was against the rules and it didn't matter why. When Dad got home I told that story just like I rehearsed. Then stood there on those trembling knees and waited for the worst. And he said, let me tell you a secret about a father's love. A secret that my daddy said was just between us. He said daddies don't just love their children every now and then. It's a love without end, amen. When I became a father in the spring of '81, there was no doubt that stubborn boy was just like my father's son. And when I thought my patience had been tested to the end, I took my daddy's secret and I passed it on to him. And I said, let me tell you a secret about a father's love. A secret that my daddy said was just between us. He said daddies don't just love their children every now and then. It's a love without end, amen. Last night I dreamed I died and stood outside those pearly gates, when suddenly I realized there must be some mistake. If they know half the things I've done, they'll never let me in. Then somewhere from the other side, I heard those words again. And they said, let me tell you a secret about a father's love. A secret that my daddy said was just between us. He said daddies don't just love their children every now and then. It's a love without end, amen. It's a love without end, amen.
Well, thank you, Andrew and Lisa. And boy, there are just every Sunday I remember how grateful I am for all the talented people who are responsible for putting services together, doing music, teaching our kids. It's just an amazing team, and the tech folks. I'm so grateful for you all. Well, these past few weeks, as I've been preparing and interviewing candidates for our administrator position, and by the way, I hope to have some exciting news for you on that front this coming week. It's been a good opportunity for me, with a little bit of a time crunch, to look back at some of the sermons that have felt important to me and see if I still believe those things. There's an old story about Ralph Waldo Emerson, who after he left the Unitarian pulpit, became a lecturer and was in pretty high demand. And so he gave a lot of the same lectures around the country. And as the story goes, Ralph Waldo Emerson was reading through one of his lectures, and he stopped and he said, "I don't believe that anymore." And then he just kept going. So one thought is it would have been good for him to review beforehand. But I think also that things change, and so to review our ideas is important. All that to say that, like last week, if you recognize some of the material here from several years ago, you're not going insane. You probably did hear it here. Still, again, I was glad to be able to revisit a sermon I did when I first got here about the ethical system of Joseph Fletcher and what it says about decision-making in complex times like these. Fletcher's thinking has been a rock for me, a place that I can return to again and again and again when I need to think carefully about what to do. And maybe you'll decide to pick up his book, Situation Ethics, after hearing some of what he proposed. But I don't want to start with Joseph Fletcher. I want to start in the 1500s. About that time is when people started printing the Bible into common languages so that the congregation, not just the priests, could read and interpret it. The leaders of the church got really defensive. The church is supposed to be handing the truth to people, they thought. And I wonder if what they were really thinking is, if people could read the Bible for themselves, would they even show up on Sunday? And at about that same time came Martin Luther, disputing the church's teaching that salvation could be purchased with a donation to the church. Institutions were being questioned. Information began being passed, in some ways, straight to the people. The stream of change flowed through Europe into the founding of America, and America's verbal nod to the freedom to practice your religion as each person sees fit, and to democracy and one person, one vote, and on until there's me sitting in a bookshop a couple of years ago, one of those bookstore coffee shops. I was just minding my own business, researching on my computer, working on a sermon. I was sitting next to this fellow who had a pile of books beside him. So there we were, me poking around on the internet, complete stranger next to me, perusing a pile of books and jotting down notes, when a guy approached us that neither of us knew. He stood in front of me, but he talked to the guy who was poring over the stack of books. He glanced at me and looked at the other guy, back and forth, and then he said wistfully, as if he was remembering a dear loved one, "There was a time," he said, "when not just anyone had access to information." And after giving me a dirty look, off he went. Besides being a little bit of a jerk, this guy was noticing something important, a big shift in our society that is actually still happening. Access to information has been radically democratized. It wasn't so long ago, even just a few decades, that teachers, ministers, professors, print newspapers sort of owned information. The educated person stood up in front of people or wrote on paper and handed facts to the class or the gathered masses. It's different now. Now, some 500 years after the Reformation and the invention of the printing press, those of us who are privileged to have smartphones, or is it a privilege? I don't know, have instant access to information at our fingertips 24/7, billions of facts in the palms of our hands. Did you know that the first smartphone was only released in 2000? A big clunky thing. And the first iPhone was only released in 2007, less than 15 years ago. And today, according to Peter Bowden, a Unitarian Universalist growth expert, there are more smartphones being produced every year than babies being born. Peter told the story in a training of his I attended some years back of being in a coffee shop, listening to a child and two parents talking. The child was talking about some insect, and Dad said, "I think they're mollusks." Now, Peter is a children's TV producer for WGBH in Boston. And when he heard this, he shook his head quietly. The mom noticed and said, "What, is it not a mollusk?" "I don't think so," Peter said, and bam, 3 smartphones are out searching for the insect. Immediately, they knew that it was an arthropod, not a mollusk. No more Encyclopedia Britannica, those big volumes that many of our families bought from traveling salespeople. No more, "I'll look that up when I get home." Information is constantly accessible, instantly. And we can take it in, and then we can pass it on immediately. So on Facebook, which was only born in 2003, Twitter, which was founded in 2006, we have actually moved from being able to instantly access information to instantly producing and disseminating information. COVID-19 has increased the speed of adoption of technologies like Zoom and other video meeting platforms. The world is changing in amazing ways. Ministers and professors and teachers are facilitators of information now. Institutions, congregations like this one are adapting as quickly as we can. That same shift impacts our ethical decision-making, I think. We don't need organized religion to provide information to us anymore. Institutions aren't just being questioned, they are either adapting or dying. Liberal Protestantism is frankly dying on the vine. Some denominations have lost 20% of their membership in the last decade as leaders and people in the pews try to figure it all out. In that landscape, we are doing quite well. So how does a person in this kind of culture make ethical decisions? I mean, if I'm in a conundrum, I can get a Hindu perspective, a psychotherapist's point of view, and ask my mother across the country what she would do without standing up from my chair. Oddly, with so much information at our fingertips, it's easy to feel adrift, unmoored from any particular ethical system, so awash in different perspectives that I don't know what to think anymore. We can become dilettantes, flitting from idea to idea to idea, and perhaps finding what best suits our instincts in the moment. How do we do ethics and do them well in 2020? How do we take all those perspectives into consideration without being wishy-washy? Well, in this month in which our theme is good and evil, I wonder how we might move beyond that polarizing framework, good and evil, into something that helps us do serious thinking. I want to suggest Joseph Fletcher's framework as something that might be helpful. He made a proposal in the 1960s as the changes I described, some of them were germinating. Fletcher was an Episcopal priest and professor. He taught Christian ethics at Harvard, but later in life he became an atheist. He became an important ethical voice on topics including infanticide, euthanasia, and cloning. Fletcher finished his career as a bioethicist, co-founding the program in biology and society at the University of Virginia. His most enduring quote is something you might have heard a version of. He said, "We ought to love people and use things. The essence of immorality is to love things and use people." In 1966, while he was at Harvard, Fletcher wrote a book called Situation Ethics, The New Morality. He argues that there are three ways to approach ethics: legalism, antinomianism, and situationism. Legalism plays really well to big dictatorial institutions. Basically, you find laws that are universally true, and you always follow those laws. Fletcher wrote, quote, "Not just the spirit, but the letter of the law reigns. Its principles, codified in rules, are not just guidelines or maxims to illuminate the situation. They are directives to be followed. If, like me, you grew up in a conservative religious tradition, you know that system pretty well. We're also hearing it, strangely, from the lawless occupant of the Oval Office, who talks about law and order. Laws must always be followed, and if they're not followed, you'll be punished. Legalism." On the other side of the spectrum from legalism, Fletcher argues is antinomianism, anti-laws. The antinomian believes that there's absolutely no universal law of any kind. The ancient Gnostics are a good example of that. Fletcher describes them as believing that, quote, "Neither principles nor rules were needed any longer, even as guidelines or direction pointers. People would just know what was right when they needed to know. Making moral decisions for them was a matter of spontaneity. It is literally unprincipled. They follow no forecastable course from one situation to another. They're not only unbound by the chains of law, but they are impromptu and intellectually irresponsible," end quote. So there's a system that says laws must always be followed and there are universal laws, and there's a system that says there are no laws that are universal. I think both of those are dangers for Unitarian Universalists. We can be legalists, we religious progressives, following the letter of every liberal principle we can find in bumper sticker form, without hearing the context of the story. And we can certainly be antinomian, anti-law, anti-institutional. But Joseph Fletcher proposed a middle way, the situationist. Here's a quote from Fletcher. The situationist enters into every decision-making situation fully armed with the ethical maxims of his community and its heritage, and treats them with respect as illuminators of his problems. Just the same, she is prepared in any situation to compromise them or to set them aside in the situation if love seems better served by doing so. The situationist follows a moral law or violates it according to love's need. For example, almsgiving is a good thing if. The situationist never says almsgiving is a good thing, period. Decisions are hypothetical, not quite categorical. Only the commandment to love is always good, end quote. In this emerging world, where we're deconstructing so many systems of racial prejudice and social class discrimination, Unitarian Universalism, I think, cannot be just the antinomian, anti-law denomination. We are an association with a history and a heritage, with a point of view, with principles and values that we have passed down for centuries. If we pay attention to them, they can illuminate the situations we face in 2020. They can guide us as we go around making thousands of decisions every day. Legalistic rules say don't do a certain thing ever, or I don't vote for any candidate of a certain party ever. But situationist principles like our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, are guidelines to help us decide how to make ethical decisions as a congregation and as individual people. They illuminate particular situations rather than prescribing specific actions, so that we can ask in any situation, what does it mean in this situation to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person? And overarching all of those and weaving through all of our principles is love. Love comes first and is the foundation for everything else. So the question in any ethical dilemma becomes, what would love do in this situation? So Fletcher says, nothing we do is always good or always bad, or very few things are. Only one thing is always good, and that is love. He wrote, nothing is worth anything in and of itself. It gains or acquires its value only because it happens to help persons, thus being good, or to hurt persons, thus being bad. But love is not something we have or we are. It is something we do. Well, that leads to the question, what is love? Fletcher describes that in his well-titled chapter, Love is Not Liking. He said, love wills the neighbor's good whether we like him or not. He bases his notion of love on the Greek word agape, which means something like unconditional love. That kind of love is not a feeling. It's not some warm and fuzzy, squishy, I want to teach the world to sing kind of thing. It's a love with a will that says in every situation, I will seek to apply the principle of love to the best of my ability. This is certainly not a love that is always nice. I'm from the Midwest, but I'm from the Southern Midwest. I know what bless her heart really means. And I know that nice can be the enemy of the agape love that Fletcher suggests we should place at the heart of our ethical decision-making. Nice refuses to confront, but love realizes that sometimes confrontation is the only way. Nice is usually easy. Love is sometimes very difficult. Love looks like protesters from all backgrounds and walks of life in the streets, loudly and persistently demanding justice. Can burning down a building ever be the ethically right thing to do? Can it be called love? Well, tell me the context, and together we can decide. If the context is generations of Black people being killed by agents of our government and receiving no response to cries for change, well, that becomes a pretty complicated question. And there's something that makes situation ethics even more challenging for us. We Unitarian Universalists do love our bumper stickers. I don't usually put them on my car, although I made an exception for a Black Lives Matter decal, but I do paste them all over my toolbox in the garage. I play my part in Unitarian Universalists having more bumper stickers per capita than any other religious movement. But 3 or 4 word slogans are just no good for ethical decision making in a complex world like this one. Author Daniel Bell wrote, "Ideologists are terrible simplifiers. Ideology makes it unnecessary for people to confront individual issues and individual situations. One simply turns to the ideological vending machine and out comes the prepared formula," end quote. But Joseph Fletcher called us 60 years ago to hold our ideologies loosely and instead let love guide us in our ethical decision making. It will help us take into account all the complexities of ethics in an increasingly interconnected and complex world. So may we do the hard work of discerning what love calls us to do in all the different situations we find ourselves in. Now let's sing together one more time, "Love Will Guide Us."
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like the angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
Now, please join me as we repeat the words as we extinguish our chalice. Though we extinguish the chalice, our connection to each other and this community remains. May its light guide us this week as we walk the path of justice, speak words of love, and fill our world with compassion until we meet again.
Well, now, friends, may life bless you and keep you. May the Spirit make its face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. May the universe pour out the fullness of its blessings on you and bring you peace. Go in peace, dear friends, to serve love and to serve one another. Happy Father's Day. We're going to give folks a few moments to log off if they would like, and then we'll go into breakout rooms. And the questions to be considered are in at the bottom there of your chat window. Blessings to you all. Have a beautiful Sunday afternoon.